Hi, everyone. It's Alex Savage from KTVU, Fox 2 News in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we all know that this coronavirus pandemic has just presented incredible challenges for teachers who are continuing to educate our students here through distance learning. Joining us to talk more about some of these issues is Beatrice Viramontes, who is the Chief Community Impact Officer for Teach for America and a former teacher, of course. Beatrice, it's good to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Appreciate it.
Yeah, there's so many issues to discuss here when it comes to education and distance learning and what is next for our students here. First, talk to me from your perspective about just how difficult it has been here in the middle of this pandemic, trying to do distance learning and trying to make sure that students are properly educated.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd start with teaching is hard, period. And teaching has always required profound acts of leadership. And especially for Teach for America, our teachers serve in the most underserved schools. And so they've always been up against challenges, whether it's about resourcing or low expectations and what it takes to really get kids access to high quality education. This has revealed a new set of challenges. I think we've seen across the country, it's revealed how inequality impacts the life experience of children and families across the nation. And for our students, what this has meant is as soon as school was canceled on a Friday, by the following Monday, some didn't have access to wireless in their homes. Some didn't have access to a smart device, or there was one that they had to share among 4 siblings. And so the pivot to distance learning was huge for everyone. And for those who don't have access to those critical resources, they were disconnected for some time. And so what it's meant for us and working with our teachers is we got to start there. We got to start where our families are and meet them there. And our teachers spent a lot of time just understanding where are my kids, right? And phone calls, and if they couldn't reach their phones, going to knock on doors and seeing where our kids and families are, assessing what they need so they can connect them to those resources. And that was baseline foundation.
And that is obviously right, like you said. I mean, that's like the bottom line is you have to have the tools. I mean, obviously, students are doing classes through Zoom and Google Classroom or whatever it is, but you have to have those tools and have the connectivity. Do you think enough has been done? The school districts you know about here in the Bay Area and in California, is enough being done to get those tools, the proper tools, into the hands of students?
Enough is a big word. I think there's always opportunity, but what we are seeing is that our city leadership is stepping up. One of the things that folks don't know about Teach for America is, we initially start with a commitment for teachers to start in the classroom, but we do believe we need leadership at all levels of our society in various different sectors to address the challenges kids and families face. And so examples of the work that our alumni have done that we've seen, some of you may have seen the headline, but just a week ago, we had the CEO of Twitter donate $10 million to Oakland Unified School District to bridge the gap and ensure that they could get 25,000 more hotspots and laptops. The Mayor's Office of Education is led by a former Teach for America Corps member, an alum who was a principal for several years in Oakland, right? So those are the examples. In San Jose, we actually saw several elected leaders, some of which are our alumni as well, elected school board members, actually work with city council to increase funding to get Wi-Fi and hotspots to families. And so we are seeing sort of a different level of recognition. It's just so clear that inequity is going to just grow. The academic gap is going to grow unless there are mass interventions like that. And it's been really inspiring to see that. And at a smaller scale, we see our teachers who understand that where families are right now also impacts their kids' ability to access learning. We have some schools where up to 70% of families and teachers coming together as a community, creating GoFundMes to ask for the community to give some support, some relief to families. And so there could always be more done. And I know that the state of California is, experiencing potential cuts. The governor just released his budget, and it's hard to know where the money's going to come from. It's inspiring when we see community members step up and provide, whether it's a few hundred for families or millions from an organization to be able to meet the needs of our schools and our kids.
What are some of the most creative ways that you've seen some of your teachers try to connect with students through this distance learning model?
Yeah, we've seen a few. So I would say, from a creating normalcy perspective, we've seen, you can imagine for some of our young kids, the kindergartners, going to school was exciting because they get to see their friends. And so we've had teachers who from day one are holding community meetings, and whatever stuffed animal they used to pass around in a circle, they put it up on the screen and they ask the students to pet it or to pretend you're holding the dinosaur and tell a story about your weekend. They're taking those steps, as well as actually going to homes and delivering packets once they know that there are students that can't access the Zooms in the same way. They're going out of their way to get them the resources in front of their homes. And so,
Oh, hold on.
again, those are some examples. We have teachers who recognize, I can't just say, is the connection okay?
Yeah, the connection just went a little bit off for a moment there, but that's okay. They can.
We're back.
Fix it. Yeah, that's okay. But you were making the point about the way that teachers are stepping up right now and having to get creative to make sure they reach students. What advice would you give to all of us parents out there who are struggling on the other side of this equation, if you will, right? Trying to make sure that we can get our kids focused when they're not in that classroom setting. What do you say to parents and to students?
Gosh, I would say this is a hard time. You are enough. You're doing everything you can, and you're not alone. I think one, you have teachers who you can connect with. And what I've seen is our teachers are deeply committed to you. Give them a call. Let them know what you're struggling with, and they will be thought partners with you. Talk to other parents who are having the same struggles, and know that you don't have to hold school for your kids for 6 hours straight. I mean, if you talk to your teachers, they'll say, hey, if your child is this old, like really, it shouldn't be no more than 20 minutes of screen time, and let them play. That is part of their development. Even if they're high school students, give them a mind break. Make sure that they're online on the screen for some time, stepping away for others. But you're not alone, and not only are there people here to help you, but there are also a ton of resources. Even Teach for America put a national resource hub together that anyone can access. You can go to our website, and it has curricular resources.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. It has curricular resources, tips for how you can do distance learning. So the headline is, you're not alone. You're doing enough. We appreciate everything you're doing. And for kids,
that hit home for me. Personally, it's a struggle. It's a real struggle. How important is it to address the mental health aspect of this whole crisis for students right now? And what's the role that you think teachers play in that?
Gosh. Well, I would say that the mental health concerns that teachers have right now in terms of the trauma that this might be leading students to have, feeling disconnected, feeling insecure, not knowing when they're going to be able to go back to a school building and see their community. I think we all recognize that we don't quite know what we're going to have to do differently, but we're going to have to do something differently. And there are great organizations who are already developing resources to help schools think about, what does reentry look like? What does it look like to facilitate spaces, whether in groups or one-on-one, to help students process through this change once they're reconnected? But I would say as adults, it's important to assess what you need as well. And there are also mental health resources available for teachers. In order for teachers to be their best, they got to take care of themselves as well. Yeah. And so as we think about schools coming back together, my hope is that leaders will be thinking about what their kids need, what families need, but also what their staff needs to be able to really show up and be present for kids and families, because that's what we're going to need.
Yeah, it's a long road ahead here, and you allude to sort of what the next phases are here in the process. I'm sure you've heard here in California, the state is gonna give the green light for individual districts if they want to begin reopening schools here for the fall semester. I'm curious what you think the future of learning is going to look like here as students and teachers return to the classroom.
Yeah, well, I think it's an understatement that this is pushing us all to reimagine education and reimagine our world. And I hope that the world doesn't just go back to what it used to be, and that we're all charged to address inequalities and be innovative in a different way. I know, and I hear from our schools that they are planning scenarios. Could it be staggered days? Could it be a combination of some in person and some virtual? And I would say, yes, we should expect that. What it looks like exactly, we don't know yet, but I imagine it's going to be a combination of those. And, you know, we see a surge of cases again. It may be that schools close again. And so all schools are thinking about, what have we learned from the last few months in terms of what great distance learning looks like? What are the best resources out there? How do we prepare for that to be a part of what this looks like? And I would say, you know, the childcare question for parents is huge. It is on the governor's mind, and he is thinking about what resources there are to support families, because we're going to need childcare for families also. As a part of what their existence is going to be for the next 18 months or so is being at home with your kids. Maybe not every day, maybe not the whole part of the day, but it is a question we should be holding as a community together.
Yeah, we should be prepared. It seems like, it's the sense I'm getting, we should be prepared for potentially that mix of, you know, our children going to an actual school on certain days, and then maybe other days continuing to do distance learning. We're going to have to all be very, very flexible, it seems like. Do you think that teachers looking ahead, once schools begin to reopen, teachers are going to have to obviously focus on the classroom learning and the materials, but there's also going to be a safety, it feels like to me, a safety component, sort of looking out, I mean, obviously looking out for the well-being of their students when it comes to this outbreak, and trying to make sure that you don't have a reoccurrence of coronavirus. I mean, what is that going to look like for teachers? I mean, it's just another thing to kind of put on their plate, right?
Yeah, it is. We don't know that fully yet. You know, I think what is clear is, again, when you think about how this impacts the most underserved communities, schools that have large class sizes, it's going to be more difficult to think about how to re-enter versus private schools who already have a class size of 10. They may be able to more safely be in a classroom together again, right? And so there is going to have to be a lot of creativity from our schools and districts who serve the most underserved students. And part of that is they're going to need more of the protective equipment, which is going to mean more funding. Like I said, they're going to have to think about staggered schedules for PE, for nutrition, so they're not all in one space. The CDC has some rough guidelines out there that are largely about not having too many people in one space together and staggering interaction. And so those are the biggest considerations. And I know districts are holding that and asking themselves, what are the resources we're going to need to make that happen?
Yeah, it just seems so hard. I have a my son he's a second grader, and when I sat and thought about it, I thought, kids of his age, you know, the younger kids, I mean, they do the exact opposite of social distancing when they're around each other. You know what I mean, right? It's like they're always like constantly in each other's faces, and I'm just trying to imagine what you know. It's just going to be such a challenge for teachers to try to create some sort of separation.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll know more about this virus in the next few months, right? I think we don't know enough really about how this impacts children, and is that as much of a risk. We do know it impacts adults, and so what does drop-off and pickup look like so that adults are not interacting? That might be an easier question to tackle because we know it's something we have to tackle. We just don't know enough about how it impacts kids, but we have to be cautious. We can't take that for granted, right?
No, absolutely not. No, they are too important. Let me ask you, as you step back in a you know, a broader sense here, and you have all of these students in all these districts doing distance learning here for many weeks, and you know, who knows how much longer down the road. Do you have concerns about, especially the students in the underserved communities that obviously Teach for America focuses on? How concerned are you about those students really falling behind from an educational standpoint in a significant way?
Yeah, it is a real concern. I would say it's a concern that all parents have for all kids, right? But again, the ability to access resources, whether that's additional one-on-one support, is going to be easier for our more well-off families than it is for our low-income families. There are still, yes, we're seeing thousands of laptops being donated, but there are still thousands of kids who don't have them. So it is a very real concern. And I would say even once that gap is bridged, there is then a question of, well, what does great teaching look like? Mm-hmm. And it's important we get an answer to that question. There's not going to be one answer, in this new world, but we start to develop answers to that question soon and really get the coaching and development to our teachers, which is the role that we play as Teach for America, right? Is what are the best practices already that we see out there? How do we embed that in our program now so that in the fall we can start training our teachers in that way? There is a question of, well, we know we're going to have to close gaps. How can we define what quality instruction looks like quickly so we can align our supports to that, and our teachers are helping to close that gap as soon as possible?
Yeah, you have to you have to work as quickly as possible to do it. From your standpoint, obviously, you were trying to recruit people to become teachers in classrooms across the country. When you sit and look at it, how do you think this pandemic is going to affect the ability to be able to recruit teachers in this country?
Yeah, it's hard to predict because in some ways the role of a teacher looks so different than it did 2 months ago. And you don't know what that's going to mean for people's motivations to want to teach. And I will say that we have been facing a massive teacher shortage in the state of California for about a decade now. We've seen enrollment and preparation programs drop, and there have been vacancies in the thousands across the state. When we see a challenging market, we do see more people come to teaching. My hope is that people are coming to teaching not just because they see an opportunity, but because they're inspired by the opportunity that is the innovations around what education looks like right now. And so it's hard to predict. I imagine we'll see a few more people coming to education, but like I said, I hope it's because they're excited about this new challenge and really want to support our students and families in moving through it.
All right. So you would encourage anyone who has thought about getting into education, now is the time to do it. If you were on the fence about it, you are needed now more than ever.
Yes, and I would say that this is not lip service. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a teacher. My mom is a teacher. Ironically, both my sisters are now teachers as well, and teaching changed my life. Teaching changed my life. I taught middle school. I saw 300 students every day. I had big classes. And the relationships I built with them, the hope and the dreams that they held, were such a motivation for me to continue this work that I'm going to be in education for the rest of my life. And so maybe there's a fear at taking that leap because it could change your life too. But I would say this is one of the most important leadership opportunities of this generation, is to think about how to support our students and families. And so, yes, I would say consider teaching. It is a huge opportunity for you to grow and for our kids to change your perspective and your life path too.
And boy, are we seeing, teachers just stepping up in incredible ways during this crisis. And, we appreciate everything they are doing. It's just really remarkable what we're seeing. I'll leave the conversation there unless there's anything else that you wanted to add, Beatrice.
No, just another affirmation again to parents and families. I know, Alex, you are one of them, but you all are doing so much for our kids as well. And so just a lot of gratitude to our caretakers, a lot of gratitude to our teachers all over the nation, but especially here in the Bay Area. We know how hard you all are working. So thank you. Yeah, no, everyone's working hard on all sides of the distance learning equation. And it does take a village to make it all happen. Thank you so much for your time, and appreciate everything the teachers are doing right now. Beatrice Viramontes, a former educator and the Chief Community Impact Officer for Teach for America, and the website teachforamerica.org. .org. That's right. Wonderful. Beatrice, thank you so much. I'll let everyone else know who's watching here that we also have more information up at our website. It's coronavirusnow.com. I'm Alex Savage from KTVU Fox 2 News in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'll see you next time.